The alarm bells echoed through Sanctuary Station for the third time that day. In the medical wing, doctors and caregivers ran down the white corridors with worried faces. Another feeding attempt had failed. The predator cub was getting worse. Commander Velis stood outside the observation window, his blue skin darker than usual with stress. He was an Etherin, a species known for staying calm in difficult situations, but even he felt the pressure building. They were running out of time. Through the thick glass, he could see the small black shape huddled in the corner of the medical bay. The Carveth cub looked so small in that big room, even though she was already the size of a large dog. Her black fur was dirty and matted. Her 6 eyes darted around constantly, watching for danger that her young mind could not understand was not there. "How long has it been since she ate?" Velis asked. Dr. Thesson, the lead xenobiologist, clicked his mandibles together nervously. The tall insect-like Vryn had tried everything he knew. 4 days now. "She drinks a little water, but she destroys any food we send in. This morning she attacked another feeding drone. That is the 6th one this week." Velis watched as the cub, whose name was Senna according to the ship records, suddenly snarled at nothing. Her small body tensed, ready to fight or run. But there was nowhere to run, and nothing to fight except her own fear. "Tell me again what we have tried," Velis said quietly. Dr. Thesson pulled up a data pad, though he did not really need it. He had memorized the list of failures. "We adjusted the temperature to match the Carveth homeworld. We brought in soil samples with the correct scent markers. We played recordings of adult Carveth voices. We even built a robotic surrogate that looks and moves like a Carveth parent. And she attacked it. Tore it apart, actually. The engineers are still upset about that," Velis sighed. Behind him, other members of the care team gathered. There was Nyla, a Quillen nurturer whose species raised children from dozens of different families altogether. Her soft purple fur was usually perfectly groomed, but now she looked tired and sad. The Quillen were famous across the galaxy for their ability to care for young ones. If Nyla could not help, it seemed impossible. There was also Healer Vross, a Valorian whose empathic powers could sense and soothe emotional pain. But even Vross had failed. He had tried to connect with Senna's mind, to show her she was safe. The cub had screamed so loudly that Vross collapsed and had to spend 2 days recovering. The fear and grief in that small mind was too much even for him. "She is dying," Nyla said softly. Her large eyes were wet, not from injury or disease, but from fear. "Her heart is breaking and we cannot fix it." Velis knew she was right. He had seen the medical reports. Senna's body was starting to shut down from stress. Soon, even if they forced food into her, it would be too late. "The security team wants to sedate her," Dr. Thesson said.
"Keep her unconscious until we can contact her people."
"The Carveth delegation is still 3 weeks away. That will kill her," Vross said, his voice rough from his earlier injury. "Her mind is already traumatized. If we put her in a medical coma, she may never wake up properly. She could be damaged forever." They all stood in silence, watching the small creature who was suffering so much. Senna had been rescued from a destroyed colony ship. Raiders had attacked her family's vessel, killing everyone. She was found 3 days later, hidden in a cargo container, the only survivor. She was only 6 months old. In Carveth development, that made her like a human toddler in her emotional needs. But she had the body of a predator, with sharp claws and strong muscles. She was dangerous when frightened, which was all the time now. "There must be something," Velis said. "Some species we have not consulted. Some technique we have not tried. We have contacted every major species in the coalition," Dr. Thesson replied. "The best minds, the most experienced caregivers. No one knows what else to do." A junior technician, a young Plenaran named Kix, spoke up hesitantly. "What about the humans?" Everyone turned to look at him. Kix's scales flushed darker with embarrassment at suddenly being the center of attention. "Humans?" Dr. Thesson asked. "What would they know? They have only been in the coalition for 5 years. They have no advanced xenobiology training. Most of them are just traders and explorers." "I know," Kix said, "but I heard stories. Strange stories. Like the human who saved a Keelar hatchling by singing to it. Or the one who helped a Brexan overcome its fear of water by playing some game. They do things that do not make sense, but somehow they work." Velis considered this. He had heard similar stories. Humans were odd. They came from Earth, a death world that produced a species that was both logical and emotional, careful and reckless, scientific and artistic. They seemed to connect with other species in ways that surprised everyone. Are there any humans on the station? He asked. Kix checked his pad. Yes, Commander. A human freighter docked 2 days ago for repairs. The Rising Star. They are working on their cooling systems. Contact them, Velis decided. Ask if any of them have experience with animals or young creatures. At this point, we have nothing to lose. Dr. Thesson looked skeptical. Commander, with respect, what could humans possibly do that we have not already tried? We have the best equipment, the most knowledge, the greatest expertise in the Coalition. Velis watched Senna through the window. The cub had started making that sound again. A low, keening cry that made everyone who heard it feel sick. It was the sound of a child calling for parents who would never come. Perhaps that is the problem, Velis said quietly. Perhaps what she needs is not equipment or knowledge or expertise. Perhaps she needs something else, something we do not have. What? Nyla asked. I do not know, Velis admitted. But humans see the world differently. They approach problems from angles we do not expect. They have this quality, this thing they call compassion, that seems to work across species in ways we do not fully understand. He turned away from the window, unable to watch Senna suffer any longer. Contact the human ship. Tell them we need help. If they cannot do anything, then we will have to sedate Senna and hope for the best. As Kix hurried to send the message, Dr. Thesson moved closer to the window. He studied the small Carveth cub with his compound eyes, analyzing her behavior patterns one more time. The medical bay was perfect by every scientific measure. The temperature, humidity, air composition, lighting, all of it matched what Carveth cubs needed. They had provided appropriate stimuli, proper nutrition, correct environmental cues. Everything was right, so why was everything going so wrong? An hour later, 2 humans arrived at the medical wing. They were both young by human standards. The male was tall with brown hair and friendly eyes. He introduced himself as Jake Morrison, cargo specialist. The female was shorter with black hair pulled back in a practical style. She said her name was Lisa Chen, and she worked as a mechanic. Neither looked like experts in anything except their jobs on the freighter. They wore simple work clothes and carried no special equipment. Dr. Thesson felt his hope, already small, shrink even more. But Commander Velis welcomed them warmly. He took them to the observation window and explained everything. The attack on Senna's ship, her rescue, her arrival at the station, all the failed attempts to help her. Jake and Lisa listened carefully, asking questions now and then. Then they stood at the window for a long time, just watching Senna. Poor kid, Lisa said softly. Can you help her? Velis asked. The 2 humans looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them, the way humans often seem to understand each other without words. Maybe, Jake said. We can try something at least, but you might think it is crazy. At this point, Velis replied, crazy is exactly what we need. Jake stood at the observation window, studying the medical bay where Senna huddled. Lisa stood beside him, her arms crossed, her expression thoughtful. Behind them, Dr. Thesson, Commander Velis, and the rest of the care team waited. You see how big that room is? Lisa asked, not taking her eyes off the cub. Very spacious, Dr. Thesson agreed. We made sure she had plenty of room to move around. Carveth are active predators. They need space. That is the problem, Lisa said. She has too much space. Dr. Thesson's mandibles clicked in confusion. Too much space? That makes no sense. How can a creature have too much space? Jake turned to face the alien doctor. Tell me about Carveth dens. Where do they raise their cubs in the wild? Dr. Thesson pulled up information on his datapad. Carveth are den predators. They dig caves into hillsides or use natural caverns. The dens are usually small, dark, with narrow entrances. The cubs stay in the den for the first year while the parents hunt. Small and dark, Jake repeated, with narrow entrances. So basically the opposite of this room. He gestured at the medical bay. It was large, brightly lit, with smooth white walls and an open floor plan. Every corner was visible. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to feel protected. But we need to observe her, Dr. Thesson protested. We need to monitor her vital signs, deliver food, provide medical care if needed. A small dark space would make that impossible. Which do you need more? Lisa asked. To observe her or to save her life? The question hung in the air. Dr. Thesson had no answer. Look at her, Jake said, turning back to the window. She is in the corner because it is the only place where she can put her back against something solid. She is trying to make herself small, trying to hide, but there is nothing to hide in. She feels exposed and vulnerable every second. Commander Velis stepped forward. What are you proposing? We need to change the room, Jake said. Make it feel more like a den. Give her places to hide, places where she feels safe. We can adjust the lighting, Dr. Thesson offered. Make it darker. We can project images of cave walls. Lisa shook her head. No projections. No high-tech solutions. She needs something real. Something she can touch and smell and interact with. Something that feels solid. What did you have in mind? Velis asked. Jake and Lisa exchanged another look. Then Jake said, Do you have any cardboard boxes? The silence that followed was long and uncomfortable. Dr. Thesson stared at Jake as if the human had just suggested something completely insane. Even Nyla, the gentle Quillen nurturer, looked confused. Cardboard boxes? Dr. Thesson repeated slowly. You want to put cardboard boxes in a medical bay designed for a dangerous predator? Yes, Jake said simply. That is your solution? After we have tried advanced environmental controls, empathic healing, behavioral conditioning, robotic surrogates, you want to use primitive containers made of pressed paper? Yes, Jake said again, his voice calm and patient. Dr. Thesson turned to Commander Velis. This is ridiculous. We cannot seriously consider this. But Velis was watching Jake carefully. The human did not look like he was joking. He looked serious, confident even. Explain, Velis said. Jake nodded. On Earth we have these animals called cats. They are small predators, hunters. People keep them as companions. And there is this funny thing about cats. You can buy them expensive beds, fancy toys, elaborate climbing structures. But what do they love most? Cardboard boxes. I do not see how this is relevant, Dr. Thesson said. It is relevant because it tells us something about predator psychology, Lisa explained. Predators, especially young ones, want places where they feel hidden and protected. A box gives them that. It has walls they can touch. It has an opening they can watch from. It makes them feel like they are in a den, even if they are not. Senna is not a cat, Dr. Thesson pointed out. No, Jake agreed. But she is a den predator who is terrified because she has no den. We can give her that. Not a perfect solution, but something that might help. Commander Velis made a decision. Do it. Clear the medical bay of equipment. Bring in these boxes. We will try the human approach. Dr. Thesson looked like he wanted to argue more, but the commander's tone left no room for discussion. Instead, the doctor pulled up schematics and started planning how to safely remove the medical equipment. Jake returned to the Rising Star and came back with an armful of cardboard boxes. They were simple shipping containers, different sizes, some flat and some tall. To Dr. Thesson's trained scientific eye, they looked like garbage. To Jake, they were tools. The medical team carefully sedated Senna just enough to move her to a holding area while they worked. It was risky, but Jake convinced them it would be worth it. While the cub was out, they cleared the medical bay of everything. All the sophisticated monitoring equipment, the feeding drones, the environmental controls, everything went out. Then Jake entered the empty room with his boxes. Dr. Thesson and the others watched through the window as the human worked. He placed the largest box on its side in the corner where Senna had been hiding. The opening faced outward, creating a cave-like space. He put smaller boxes around the room at different spots, some on their sides, some upright. He arranged them so they broke up the open floor space, creating paths and barriers. This looks like a child's play area, Dr. Thesson muttered. Maybe that is the point, Nyla said softly. She is a child. When Jake finished, the room looked completely different. It was still the same white medical bay, but now it felt smaller, more broken up. There were places to hide, places to explore, places that provided what every scared child needed, safety. They brought Senna back and placed her gently in the room. Then everyone left and gathered at the observation window. The sedative wore off slowly. Senna woke up confused, her 6 eyes blinking in the dim light. They had lowered the lighting at Jake's request, making the room darker and more comfortable. The cub stood on shaky legs and looked around. She saw the boxes. Her ears perked up, alert and curious. She moved toward the nearest small box, sniffed it carefully, then pushed at it with one paw. The box moved slightly. Not alive, not threatening, just an object. Senna investigated each box, her fear temporarily replaced by curiosity. She scratched at them, bit at the corners, tested their strength. When she reached the large box in the corner, she paused. Her 6 eyes studied it from different angles. Then she stuck her head inside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Senna's whole body followed. She disappeared into the box, only her tail sticking out for a moment before that vanished too. The observation room held its breath. Then Lisa smiled. She found her den. But she still needs to eat, Dr. Thesson said. Hiding in a box does not solve that problem. One step at a time, Jake replied. First, she needs to feel safe. Then we can work on everything else. So what now? Velis asked. Jake picked up a small pack he had brought. Now I go in there and wait. Wait for what? For her to get used to me. Dr. Thesson stepped forward. You cannot go in there. She is dangerous. She has attacked every drone and robot we sent in. She could kill you. She could, Jake agreed. But she probably will not. She is scared, not aggressive. There is a difference. How can you be sure? Jake smiled slightly. I grew up on a farm. We had animals that were scared all the time, especially young ones who lost their mothers. I learned that if you give them space and time, they usually come around. Before anyone could stop him, Jake walked to the door of the medical bay. He entered slowly, the door hissing shut behind him. Every alarm in Dr. Thesson's scientific mind screamed that this was wrong, dangerous, foolish. But Jake seemed completely calm. He moved to a spot away from Senna's box, not too close but not too far. He sat down on the floor, his back against the wall. He pulled out a small reading device from his pack and turned it on. Then he just sat there. He did not call to Senna. He did not try to coax her out. He did not even look toward her box. He simply existed in the space with her, quiet and peaceful. From inside the box there was silence. Senna was watching, Jake knew, through whatever gap in the cardboard she could find. 6 eyes studying this new creature in her space. What is he doing? Dr. Thesson asked. Being patient, Lisa said. Jake is good at that. An hour passed, then 2. Jake shifted position occasionally, stretched his legs, but never moved toward the box. He read his device, sometimes making quiet humming sounds that humans often made when they were content. In the observation room, medical staff came and went. They checked monitors, took notes, analyzed every tiny behavior, but nothing much happened. Jake sat, Senna hid. It seemed pointless. But Lisa noticed something. She pointed at one of the screens showing thermal imaging. Look at her breathing. It is slower now. More regular, it was true. Senna's respiration had calmed significantly. She was no longer in the constant state of panic that had defined every moment since her arrival. The box worked, Nyla said with wonder in her voice. The box helped, Lisa corrected. But watch Jake, he is doing something too. He is just sitting there, Dr. Thesson said. Exactly. He is not a threat. He is not demanding anything. He is just there, predictable and calm. For someone who has been through trauma, that is exactly what they need. As the 3rd hour approached, Jake stood up slowly, stretching his stiff muscles. He took a container of food from his pack, the same meat they had been trying to feed Senna for days. Jake developed a routine over the next few days. Every morning, he would enter the medical bay with fresh food and water. He would place them near Senna's box, then move to his usual spot against the wall. He would sit there for hours, reading or sketching on his data pad, occasionally talking quietly to Lisa through his communicator about ship repairs or what they might have for dinner. He never spoke directly to Senna. He never tried to look into her box or call her out. He simply shared the space with her, as predictable as sunrise. Dr. Thesson watched all of this with growing fascination. As a scientist, he took detailed notes on every interaction, trying to understand the methodology behind what Jake was doing. But the more he watched, the more confused he became. There is no structure to his approach, Dr. Thesson said to Commander Velis on the 3rd day. No treatment plan, no behavioral conditioning, no systematic desensitization. He just sits there. And yet she is improving, Velis pointed out. It was true. Senna was eating regularly now. Not much, but enough to stop the dangerous decline her body had been suffering. She drank water. Her vital signs were stabilizing. The distressed calls that had echoed through the medical wing had stopped completely. I do not understand it, Dr. Thesson admitted. By every scientific measure, this should not work. He is not using any recognized therapeutic techniques. Nyla, the Quillen nurturer, had been spending time watching Jake as well. Perhaps that is why it works, she said thoughtfully. We were treating Senna like a medical problem to be solved. Jake treats her like a person who needs a friend. On the 4th day, something new happened. Lisa joined Jake in the medical bay. She followed the same protocol he had established, entering quietly, placing food, then sitting in her own spot across the room. The two humans talked to each other in low, casual voices about nothing important. Senna watched them from her box. Jake knew she was watching because occasionally he would see a glimpse of black fur or the shine of one of her 6 eyes in the gap between cardboard flaps. Lisa laughed at something Jake said, a genuine sound of human amusement. In the observation room, Dr. Thesson noted that Senna's ears perked up at the sound. The cub was interested in human expressions, their voices, their mannerisms. Humans are very expressive, Nyla observed. Their faces show emotion constantly. Their voices carry feeling. Even their body language is easy to read. Carveth are also social creatures, Dr. Thesson added, understanding dawning. Cubs learn pack behavior by watching adults interact. She's observing them, learning that they are safe through their actions toward each other. On the 7th day, Jake experienced a breakthrough that made his heart race. He was sitting in his usual spot, reading an article about engine maintenance when he felt something touch his boot. He froze, barely breathing. Slowly, very slowly, he looked down. Senna had crept out of her box. She was right next to him, sniffing his boot with her small black nose. Her 6 eyes were locked on his face, watching for any sign of danger or aggression. Jake held perfectly still. He did not move, did not speak, barely even breathed. Every instinct told him to reach out, to pet her, to interact. But his experience with scared animals told him to wait, to let her set the pace. Senna sniffed his boot thoroughly. Then she moved up to his leg, her whiskers twitching as she took in his scent. She was close enough that Jake could see the individual hairs in her black fur, could count each of her eyes, could hear her soft breathing. Then she did something that made Jake's eyes water. She pushed her head against his knee just for a moment, before darting back to her box in a flash of black fur. In the observation room, Lisa had tears running down her face. She understood what had just happened. Senna had reached out for comfort, had made herself vulnerable, had shown trust. It was a massive step for a traumatized child. Commander Velis, watching the replay of the moment, nodded slowly. The human approach works. I would not have believed it if I had not seen it myself. It is not about approach, Nyla said softly. It is about connection. Jake saw Senna as a person, not a problem. He gave her what she needed most: time, space, and someone who would not hurt her. After that day, Senna became more active. She explored the boxes more, pushing them around, scratching at them, occasionally tearing pieces off. Jake brought her new boxes when the old ones got too damaged, and Senna seemed to enjoy destroying them and investigating the new ones. She also began to play. At first it was subtle, a pounce at a shadow, a swat at a piece of torn cardboard. But gradually she engaged in more elaborate play behaviors. She would stalk imaginary prey across the room. She would practice her hunting crouch, her rear end wiggling before she leaped. These were all healthy behaviors for a young predator. Jake started bringing simple toys, things made from fabric scraps or crumpled paper. Senna loved them. She would bat at a fabric strip for hours, carrying it around in her mouth, pouncing on it when Jake dragged it across the floor. Dr. Thesson studied these play sessions carefully. He is helping her develop natural predator skills in a safe environment. The play is practice for hunting, but without any pressure or danger. Brilliant, actually. By the end of 2 weeks, Senna would come out of her box whenever Jake arrived. She would eat while he was present. No longer feeling the need to hide with her food, she followed him around the room at a safe distance, curious about everything he did. When Jake sat down, she would settle a few feet away, watching him with her 6 eyes. When he read, she watched. When he sketched, she watched. When he talked to Lisa through the communicator, she listened, her ears swiveling to catch every sound. One afternoon, Jake was working on a simple puzzle game on his data pad when he felt a weight against his side. He looked down to find Senna pressed against him, her small body warm through his clothes. She had curled up next to him and was falling asleep. Jake barely dared to move. He kept working on his puzzle with one hand, but with the other, he very slowly reached out and gently touched Senna's head. She made a small sound, something between a purr and a rumble, and pressed closer to him. In the observation room, the medical team watched in silence. This was more than a breakthrough. This was a bond. A human and a Carveth cub, separated by millions of years of evolution and thousands of light years of space, had found connection in the simplest way possible: trust and companionship. Lisa turned away from the window, wiping her eyes. He is going to be heartbroken when she has to leave. Commander Velis looked at her. Leave? The Karveth delegation. They are coming for her, right? She belongs with her own people. Velis had not thought about that consequence. He had been so focused on saving Senna's life that he had not considered what would happen afterward. Yes, he said quietly. They will be here in less than 2 weeks. Does Jake know? I have not told him yet. Lisa looked back through the window at her friend, who was now softly stroking Senna's fur while the cub slept peacefully against him. You should tell him soon. He needs to prepare. And so does she, but Velis hesitated. How do you tell someone that they have to give up something they have come to care about? How do you prepare a traumatized child for another loss, even if it means reuniting her with her own species? Over the next few days, Jake noticed changes in Senna. She was more confident, more playful, more willing to take risks. She would play fight with him, carefully controlling her claws and teeth. She would bring him toys, dropping them at his feet and waiting for him to throw them. She even started making happy sounds, little chirps and rumbles that the Karveth database indicated were signs of contentment. Dr. Thessian added all of this to his notes. The human approach has been remarkably successful. Senna has gone from near death to thriving in less than 3 weeks. We should study this methodology, incorporate it into our care protocols. You cannot incorporate Jake into a protocol, Lisa said. She had been spending more time in the observation room, watching her friend with the cub. What he did was not about following steps or applying techniques. It was about seeing Senna as an individual and responding to what she needed. But there must be principles we can learn, Dr. Thesson insisted. Ways to replicate this success. Maybe, Lisa said. But I think the most important principle is the one that is hardest to teach. Actually caring about the person you are trying to help. That evening, Commander Velis finally talked to Jake. He found the human in the medical bay, playing a game with Senna where he would hide behind boxes and she would hunt him down. The cub's joy was obvious in every pounce and playful growl. Velis waited until they took a break, Senna chewing on a toy while Jake sat nearby. Then he entered the bay and approached carefully. Senna tensed when she saw the unfamiliar Etherin, but she did not run. She moved closer to Jake, using him as a safe base, which showed how much she had grown. Jake, Velis said, we need to talk about what happens next. Jake looked up and Velis saw in his eyes that the human already knew. He had known from the beginning that this was temporary. He had known that Senna would have to go back to her own people eventually. When do they arrive? Jake asked quietly. 5 days. Jake nodded slowly. He looked at Senna, who was watching him with all 6 eyes, sensing his emotional shift even if she did not understand the words. Okay, he said. Then we have 5 days to get her ready. The news of Jake's success with Senna spread through Sanctuary Station like wildfire. Scientists from other departments came to observe. Diplomats mentioned it in their reports. Even species that had no direct contact with the Karveth heard about the human who saved a predator cub with simple cardboard boxes. Jake did not pay attention to any of it. He was focused on the time he had left with Senna and on preparing her for what came next. The Rising Star's repairs were taking longer than expected, problems with the cooling system that kept finding new complications. Jake was grateful for the delay, even though he knew it was only postponing the inevitable. Dr. Thesson brought Jake materials related to the Karveth culture. Recordings of adult Karveth speaking, images of their homeworld, scent markers collected from Karveth trading posts. Jake introduced these things to Senna slowly, letting her investigate them at her own pace. Senna was curious about the recordings. She would tilt her head when she heard adult Karveth voices, her ears moving to catch every sound. Something deep in her instincts recognized her own kind, even though she had been too young when separated from her family to remember them clearly. The scent markers were even more powerful. When Jake opened a container with cloth that had been rubbed on Karveth furniture and belongings, Senna went very still. She approached it carefully, sniffed deeply, and then something changed in her eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or a memory so old and buried that it was more feeling than thought. She stayed near that cloth for hours, occasionally rubbing against it, breathing in the scent of her people. Jake watched and felt his heart break a little more. She belonged with the Karveth. He had always known that. But knowing and accepting were different things. Lisa spent more time with them during those final days. She and Jake would sit together while Senna played or explored. Sometimes they talked about random things, ship repairs or places they wanted to visit. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence, just being present. "You know this was always going to happen," Lisa said one evening. Senna was curled up between them, sleeping peacefully after an energetic play session. "I know," Jake replied. "Does not make it easier. You gave her back her life. That is something to be proud of." "I am proud. I'm also sad." "Both things can be true," Lisa nodded. She understood her friend well enough to know that he was struggling with this more than he showed. Jake had a big heart which made him good at connecting with creatures who needed help. It also meant he felt their loss deeply when they had to leave. "The Carveth will take good care of her," Lisa offered. "I hope so. I really hope so." That night, Jake did something he rarely did. He stayed in the medical bay after his usual hours, bringing a sleeping pad and blanket. He wanted to spend as much time with Senna as possible. When he settled down to sleep, Senna immediately curled up against him, her warm body pressed to his side. Jake lay awake for a long time, one hand resting on Senna's back, feeling her breathe. He thought about the first time he saw her, terrified and alone in that corner. He thought about the moment she first touched his knee, that tiny gesture of trust. He thought about all the hours they had spent together, building a connection that crossed the boundaries of species and evolution. He whispered to her in the darkness, knowing she could not understand his words but hoping she could feel his meaning. He told her she was brave and strong. He told her the Carveth would teach her amazing things. He told her she would grow up to be incredible. He told her he would miss her. Senna made a small sound in her sleep, something between a purr and a sigh, and pushed closer to him. The next morning, Commander Velis brought news. The Carveth delegation had sent a message. They would arrive in 3 days earlier than expected. Their ship had made better time than predicted. 3 days. Jake felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. He had thought he had 5 days. He had planned to make the most of 5 days. Now he had 3, but he did not let Senna see his distress. He played with her like always, fed her like always, sat with her like always. He wanted her last days with him to be good ones, full of security and happiness. Dr. Thesson noticed the change in Jake's behavior, the way he held himself more carefully, as if he might break. "Are you all right?" the Vryn scientist asked. "I will be," Jake said. "After. Right now I just need to focus on her." On the second to last day, Jake brought something special. He had asked the Rising Stars fabrication unit to make a small toy, a soft cloth animal that resembled the creatures from Senna's homeworld. It was simple, stuffed with soft material, easy for small paws to carry around. When he gave it to Senna, she investigated it thoroughly, sniffing and pawing at it. Then she picked it up in her mouth and carried it to her cardboard box, adding it to her collection of favorite things. Later, Jake saw her curled up with the toy tucked under her chin. Lisa found Jake that evening in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. She did not say anything, just stood next to him, sharing the view. "I keep thinking about her future," Jake finally said. "She is going to grow up. She is going to be strong and fierce, everything a Carveth should be. She will hunt and fight and be part of her culture. That is good. That is what should happen. But," Lisa prompted gently, "but she will forget me. Cubs do not remember much from when they are this young. In a few years I will just be a vague memory, if that. The human who was there for a little while before her real life began." "Maybe," Lisa said. "Or maybe she will remember in ways that matter. Maybe she will grow up feeling secure because someone cared for her when she needed it most. Maybe she will be kinder or braver or more open because of what you taught her." Jake smiled sadly. "That is a nice thought. It is also probably true." "You changed her life, Jake. You saved her. That does not go away just because she does not remember the details." The last day came too quickly. Jake spent every moment he could with Senna. They played all her favorite games. He brought her favorite foods. He let her destroy a fresh cardboard box, which she seemed to find deeply satisfying. He told her stories about Earth, about cats and dogs and horses, about his childhood on the farm. She did not understand the words, but she listened to his voice, her 6 eyes focused on his face. In the afternoon, Commander Velis informed Jake that the Carveth delegation would arrive that evening. They were ahead of schedule, their ship having pushed harder to reach Sanctuary Station quickly. They wanted their cub back as soon as possible. Jake had a few hours left. He made them count. He and Lisa both sat with Senna, petting her, playing with her, giving her all the attention and affection they could. Senna, not understanding what was coming, was happy and energetic, pouncing on toys and chasing shadows. As the time drew closer, Jake felt his chest tighten. He excused himself for a moment, stepping into the corridor outside the medical bay. Lisa found him there, his back against the wall, his eyes closed. "You can do this," she said quietly. "For her, you can do this. I know. I just need a minute. Take all the time you need. But Jake, remember, this is not an ending. This is her beginning. You made this beginning possible." Jake took a deep breath, then another. He wiped his eyes and straightened his shoulders. "Okay, let's go meet the Carveth." They returned to the medical bay. Senna bounded up to them, delighted by their return, completely unaware that in a few hours everything would change. Jake knelt down and she pushed her head against his chest, a gesture she had learned from him, a way of showing affection. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, memorizing the feel of her fur, the warmth of her body, the soft sound she made. "You are going to be amazing," he whispered. "I promise you, you are going to be so amazing." Senna pulled back and looked up at him with all 6 eyes. For a moment, Jake could have sworn she understood. Then she licked his face with her rough tongue and darted away to pounce on her toy. Lisa put a hand on Jake's shoulder. "Come on, time to face the delegation." Together they walked toward the docking bay, where the Carveth ship had just arrived, where adult members of Senna's species waited to take her home, where Jake would have to say goodbye to someone who had come to mean far more to him than he ever expected. His heart hurt, but he kept walking. The Carveth delegation arrived with a presence that filled the docking bay. 3 adult Carveth walked through the airlock, each one massive and powerful. They stood over 2 meters tall, their black fur marked with silver patterns that indicated their rank and family. Their movements were fluid and precise, the grace of apex predators. Commander Velis greeted them formally, but Jake could see the nervousness in the other species present. The Carveth were allies, members of the coalition, but they were also formidable warriors. Their reputation preceded them. The leader of the delegation was Elder Kesrin, a female whose silver markings covered much of her face and shoulders. She had scars on her arms, old wounds from battles or hunts. Her 12 eyes, 6 on each side like all Carveth, scanned the gathered crowd with sharp intelligence. Beside her stood Torvin, a younger male whose silver markings were fewer, but whose muscles spoke of strength and speed. The third Carveth, an older male named Drasic, moved with the careful precision of someone who had survived many dangerous situations. "Where is the cub?" Elder Kesrin asked. Her voice was deep and resonant, carrying the weight of authority. "She is in the medical bay," Commander Velis replied. "We have prepared her for your arrival." "Prepared her?" Torvin's tone held suspicion. "What does that mean? What have you done to her?" "Nothing harmful," Velis said quickly. "We have been caring for her. She is healthy now, eating well, growing stronger each day. You said in your messages that she was near death when she arrived," Elder Kesrin stated. "That your experts could not help her, that you had to call in someone with no training or credentials. That is correct. Jake Morrison, a human, was able to help when our best specialists could not." The 3 Carveth exchanged looks, some unspoken communication passing between them. Then Torvin spoke again. "We want to see her immediately." "Of course," Velis said. "But first I would like you to meet Jake Morrison. He has been Senna's primary caretaker." Jake stepped forward. Standing before the adult Carveth, he felt small and vulnerable. These were predators who could kill him in seconds if they chose. But he met Elder Kesrin's gaze steadily, refusing to show fear even though his heart was racing. "You are the human," Elder Kesrin said. It was not a question. "Yes, my name is Jake Morrison. You cared for our cub. Why?" The question surprised Jake. "Because she needed help. Because she was suffering. Why else would I?" Torvin growled low in his throat. "There is always a reason." "What do you want?" "What does your species gain from this?" "Nothing," Jake said simply. "I wanted to help a scared kid. That is all." "Impossible," Torvin said. "No one acts without benefit to themselves or their pack." "What is your real purpose?" Jake felt frustration rising. "My real purpose was to keep Senna alive until you could get here. That is it. There is no hidden agenda, no political strategy. I saw someone who needed help and I helped. That is what humans do." Elder Kesrin studied him for a long moment. "You expect us to believe you acted purely from compassion?" Believe what you want, Jake said, his patience wearing thin. I do not care about your politics or your suspicions. I care about Senna. She has been through trauma that would break most adults. She survived because she is strong. But she also survived because someone gave her the space and time to heal. Now she is healthy enough to go home with you, which is where she belongs. That is all that matters to me. The silence that followed was heavy. Jake realized he had been too direct, perhaps too confrontational. These were important leaders of a powerful species, and he had just challenged them. But he was too tired and too emotionally raw to care about diplomacy. Elder Kesrin's expression shifted, something that might have been approval or respect. Show us the cub, she commanded. They walked to the medical bay, the Carveth moving with that same predatory grace. At the observation window, they stopped. Inside, Senna was playing with her toy, pouncing and wrestling with it. Her black fur was clean and shiny. Her body was healthy and strong. She looked like a normal, happy Carveth cub. She looks well, Drassic observed, speaking for the first time. His voice was rough, like grinding stones. She is well, Dr. Thesson confirmed, pulling up medical data. Her vitals are excellent. She is eating properly, sleeping normally, and showing healthy play behaviors. The transformation has been remarkable. How did you do this? Elder Kesrin asked, still watching Senna through the window. Jake explained. The cardboard boxes, the patient waiting, the routine and predictability, the play and companionship. He kept it simple, not mentioning the hours of sitting, the careful observation, the emotional investment. He made it sound like a process anyone could have followed. But Elder Kesrin was not fooled. You bonded with her. Yes, Jake admitted. I did. That complicates things, Torvin said. A Carveth cub bonded to an alien. This is not natural. This is not right. Natural or not, it saved her life, Lisa spoke up. She had been quiet until now, but she was not going to let anyone dismiss what Jake had done. Your cub was dying. The best experts in the coalition could not help. Jake could and did. You should be thanking him, not questioning his motives. Torvin turned to her, his 6 eyes narrowing. You defend him because you are also human. Your species sticks together. No, Lisa said firmly. I defend him because he is a good person who did a difficult thing for no reason, except that it was the right thing to do. If your species cannot understand that, that is your problem, not ours. Enough, Elder Kesrin commanded. Both Torvin and Lisa fell silent. The elder continued to watch Senna through the window. I want to see them together. The human and the cub. I need to understand this bond. Of course, Commander Velis said. He signaled to Jake, who nodded and entered the medical bay. Senna saw him immediately and bounded over, her happiness obvious in every movement. She jumped up, putting her front paws on his legs, and he knelt down to her level. She pushed her head against his chest, and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. In the observation room, the 3 Carveth watched in silence. They saw how Senna trusted Jake completely, how she showed him affection without fear, how she played with him and responded to his gentle handling. They saw a bond that transcended species, a connection built on care and patience. This should not be possible, Torvin said quietly. She is Carveth. He is human. They are too different. And yet it is real, Elder Kesrin replied. I can see it. The cub loves him. Inside the bay, Jake was talking softly to Senna, though he knew the end was coming. He pointed to the observation window, trying to prepare her. Senna, look. Those are your people. They came for you. They are going to take you home. Senna looked toward the window. She saw the adult Carveth and went very still. Something in her instincts recognized them. The scent carried through the air system, the sight of their bodies and movement. These were her kind, but she looked back at Jake, uncertain. She moved closer to him, seeking the safety she had learned to associate with his presence. Jake's heart broke. This was the moment he had been dreading. It is okay, he whispered. They are your family. They will take care of you. Elder Kesrin made a decision. Open the door. I want to go in. The medical team hesitated, but Commander Velis nodded. The door opened and Elder Kesrin entered. She was enormous in the space, her presence filling the room. Senna tensed, pressing against Jake. The elder approached slowly, keeping her body language non-threatening. She lowered herself down, making herself smaller, less intimidating. Then she made a sound, a deep resonant call that Jake had never heard before. Senna's ears perked up. Her whole body focused on that sound. Elder Kesrin continued the call, a Karveth lullaby, a sound made by mothers to comfort their cubs. Torvin and Drassic entered and added their voices, creating a harmony that was beautiful and haunting. Senna responded. She made her own sounds, higher and younger, but unmistakably Karveth. She moved toward Elder Kesrin slowly, instinct pulling her forward. The Elder continued the call, gentle and reassuring. When Senna was close enough, Elder Kesrin touched her head carefully, scenting her, learning her. The other Karveth joined, surrounding the cub with their presence. Senna's voice joined theirs, the genetic memory of thousands of generations waking up inside her small body. But even as she connected with her own kind, Senna looked back at Jake. The human stood watching, tears running down his face, his heart breaking and healing at the same time. Elder Kesrin saw those tears and understood. Humans cried from emotion, their water expressing feelings too powerful for words. This human grieved losing Senna while celebrating her reunion with her people. The Elder stood and approached Jake. She looked down at him, her 12 eyes studying his face. "You saved her life," she said. "The Karveth do not forget such debts. You have earned our respect, Jake Morrison. More than that, you have taught us something valuable." "What is that?" Jake asked, his voice rough. "That compassion is strength, that sometimes the greatest power is in giving others what they need, even when it costs you something precious. This is wisdom we will remember." She paused, then added, "When Senna is grown, if she wishes, she may seek you out. We will tell her your story. She will know what you did for her, what you sacrificed, what you gave." Jake nodded, unable to speak. He looked at Senna, now surrounded by her people,